Hi guys, sorry I look crap again. Obviously on this channel I don't do my makeup and sometimes I don't wash my hair because I'm skanky, but let's get straight into the video. Today I'm going to be talking about sensory issues when you have autism and how they feel. So if you're not autistic, you might have no idea what sensory overload feels like, and I'm going to try and explain it in the best way possible. So let's go from a day in a life of a random autistic. Let's name a random autistic Barry. So Barry gets up in the morning and he usually likes to sleep with a blanket over him, but somehow he kicked it off in the middle of the night and woke up without a blanket on him. So he didn't have that physical stimuli in the morning to make him that stim that makes him feel comfortable. So he wakes up in the morning, no blanket on him, and he has to start his day like that. He also likes to wear a certain type of shoe, but he gets up in the morning, realises he got too drunk last night and got mud all over his shoes, so he can't wear them today. He has to wear a different pair of shoes. So now he's got two factors that have made him anxious to start the day. So he's had no blanket on and he's also having to choose a different type of shoes. Then Barry goes into the kitchen and there isn't his favourite cereal left. His mum told him to get some yesterday and he never did, so now he has to make do with toast. So there's three things that have upset Barry this morning. So the next thing is he walks out the door and realises that his mum is in today, so he can't lock the door. So there's that thing that's made him, that routine thing that has upset him as well. So there's about 4 different things now that have upset Barry in the morning. Leaving the house, a big tractor comes past the door. It's really loud and this sends Barry into a little bit of a panic, but he still wants to push on. Barry still wants to be uplifted as much as he can, and he carries on with his day. He walks and accidentally steps into a sludgy splodge of ice, let's just say. So most people think it's okay because it would eventually dry, but this has really upset Barry. It's made his feet feel disgusting, and imagine if you had stepped on an ashtray, a really massive ashtray. You'd put both your feet in it and it was stuck there all day. Imagine that that's how Barry has felt stepping on this sludgy ice. So Barry carries on walking now and bumps into his friend's mum. His friend's mum has waved at him, so he has waved back. He's realised that's what he has to do. Obviously, he's an older bloke now. He knows social rules and stuff. People with autism, all of us, not all of us, have social issues. But then this mum of his friend, let's name her Sarah, wants to talk to Barry. She starts it off with, "So how's your mum?" And he explains his mum's fine, and he asks how her mum is, and then she goes into this deep conversation about how her mum's really ill and she's in a hospital and she's really not well at all, and Barry has to sympathise. So he's also got that challenge of knowing the right way to react to everything that this lady is saying. So he's had all of that stuff in the morning and also has had some social issues. So he's had stimulation issues, routine issues where he couldn't lock the door, and he's also had this social issue where he is on the way to work but he's got stopped by his friend's mum. So Sarah then walks off. Barry carries on walking, and all the way to work, all he can hear is birds. It starts off where he could just hear one bird, but then he starts to pick up on further away birds that he couldn't hear before, but now he started to hear them. Getting into the workplace, the door creaks really loudly, and it doesn't usually feel like that loud, but this particular day Barry has opened the door and it's extremely loud, to the point where it makes his heart thud and he gets butterflies in his stomach. Barry finds feelings confusing sometimes and confuses this butterfly feeling with feeling sick. So he goes into work and tells his manager that he's had a bit of a rough morning and he feels sick today. So his manager says, "I want you to wait a couple of hours before you can start working." So that's another routine issue that has upset Barry in the morning. So Barry goes on his phone, flicks through Facebook, and every pop-up that pops up on his phone gradually becomes louder and louder and more irritating, so he puts his phone on silent. Then somebody comes and sits next to Barry on the bench and starts playing a game. The game is ring ding 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 ding, blah 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 blah, and Barry then picks up on the birds again, and more sounds going up on around him. The cars going past suddenly become more noisy. Walking into the shop, everything is exactly how it usually is, and he starts his work day as he usually would, but the lights are extremely bright and the shop tills sound extra loud. He can hear everyone's conversation all at once, and somebody tries to talk to Barry. And suddenly, when that person tries to talk to Barry, all he can hear is these other people talking around him, and he can't focus on this just one person speaking to him. He tries to, and he manages to communicate the right way, but this is just another thing that has upset Barry this morning. So hits the afternoon, and he goes for his lunch, and suddenly the texture in his sandwich feels extremely different to what he's used to. It feels very, very, very squidgy and gross. It's Marmite, and he's used to having Marmite on his sandwich, but because of all this stuff that's happened at the beginning of the day, suddenly the texture of the Marmite feels too much to bear. Suddenly he hears the birds tweeting again, and he can hear them from miles away. He hears a dog bark and the people talking inside the shop, even though he's outside the shop on a bench. The woman who was on her phone playing a game, he can hear her from a mile off, and the cars keep going round and round, and all he can hear is the car's noise. All of this gets too much for Barry and sends him into a meltdown. A meltdown is where everything is too much. This can happen in anger. He can go back in the shop and he can rage, or usually when you're an adult you can control it. So, if somebody was to talk to you in the middle of a meltdown, you probably won't know what's going on, but you understand that you're not supposed to act in a certain way. Like some high functioning autistics can get to the bathroom as quickly as possible and let go of their anger, basically. Or it can come out as crying, just crying your eyes out. And in my situation, that's what would have happened to me having a day like Barry's. I would be crying my eyes out, and if somebody tried to ask me what was wrong, I wouldn't know what to say, just that everything's got too much today. There's been too much happening, which a normal person, it wouldn't have mattered if you woke up with the duvet off of you and your mother stayed in for the day and your favourite breakfast wasn't available. You'd just think, oh, it's not my lucky day today, but let's just get on with the day. But to an autistic, those few things can mean so much, and it can also have a detrimental effect on our spiritual beliefs. It can make us think that we're just not liked by the universe. Most of us autistics, we're quite scientific, but we're also quite spiritual people. We do believe in luck, most of us, the toss of the coin and things like that. So a bad day can also make us believe less in our spirituality and feel like less of a person. So a day like Barry's can honestly be absolutely horrific for somebody on the spectrum. So that was an idea, just a rough idea of how sensory overload can impact an autistic. Usually in sensory overload, you might not go into meltdown, but you might go to stimming, which, helps you control it. So some people might do this with their hands. If I'm sitting down, I'll always tap my feet on the floor, or I'll, do something with my legs. But obviously, if I was working, I would find something else to do that would stimulate me, basically. Usually I have a tooth, and there's a little bit of a tooth that's off of my tooth, if that makes sense. I didn't make any sense, but I will. And I just click it with my tongue. It's inside my mouth, nobody can see it, but it's a stim. I also chew these sides of my cheeks. They're actually swollen where I chew them so much when I'm anxious. just do that. I also do this with my lip ring. Pull it right through. You can't even see it now. And I do that as a stim. Sometimes I do this with my eyebrows, sometimes I do that with my hands. Most of my stims, you can't really notice them, but they are helping my anxiety. If I couldn't do them, I would have a meltdown. Things like tickling your own arm or clicking your fingers or anything. I know when you're high functioning and you're more self-aware of what people would think if you did these things, so sometimes you just wait until the end of the day and let yourself go completely. But to do that is mentally and physically draining. So if somebody is having sensory overload, the best thing to do is stim straight away if you don't want to go into a meltdown. If you don't stim and you let all this tension and the anxiety and everything go on inside your head, it's extremely stressful. Even just one change, like a change of your routine, if somebody randomly stays around your house, it can send you into a meltdown because you're having to adapt your routine around them. If one of your sensory stims goes, like you can't wear your blanket at night, you have to wear a different one, that can send you into a meltdown. If there's too much loud noise, like your mum turns up the telly extra loud and won't turn it down for you, that can send you into a meltdown. A different type of food can send you into a meltdown. Just things that most people would probably be okay with can send us into complete frenzy, basically like a panic attack, but it's more intense. You don't feel like you're dying when you're having a meltdown. I mean, some people might, but usually you're unaware of a lot of things and you just feel kind of dissociated. Like in a meltdown, you do feel like you're not yourself at all. I get the feeling of finally realizing that I exist, and that's what starts my meltdown. It starts as a big overwhelming feeling that, wow, this is life, I am this person, and it freaks me out and sends me into a meltdown. But that's how my meltdowns start. I also think about just everything that could go wrong and why I'm just feeling completely off. I just feel sometimes I can't think. Right before my meltdown, everything wipes out my mind. So if I was Barry, suddenly I would not be able to think of people's names. It was almost like I'm having a stroke, but I'm not. It's like I can't remember anyone's names. I can't think of the objects in the room. My meltdown, it just sort of shuts my brain off. And I could either go into a shutdown where I don't want to talk to anyone or do anything, or I can go into a meltdown where I'm crying my eyes out. But I could also have a temper tantrum, which has happened in the past, but they're much rare for me. I usually just melt down, just cry on my meltdowns. But the biggest anger burst out I ever had was me kicking my cabinet in and breaking it. And it was because I was on a new medication, and because I had to take a new medication, it stressed me out. Also, I was going to meet my boyfriend at the time, and that stressed me out because I hadn't seen him in a while, and it was going to mess my routine up a bit. Everything was getting to me that day, and it sent me into a meltdown. So I had an anger outburst. But the thing is, when you're angry, you're not angry for any particular reason. It's just everything's got too much. You're not angry at just one extra trigger can send you into a meltdown. I could have a meltdown if I was living on my own in the desert. Suddenly, a desert suddenly has loads of stones on it, for instance, like a beach washed up a load of stones, and I'm used to walking on the sand, but suddenly I've got to walk on all the stones. And there's no pineapples left, so I'm having to make do with bananas. This is just an example. Can send me into a complete and utter frenzy, and it would be for no apparent reason. I'd just be feeling completely off. Then it would go through that stage where I feel too real, everything feels too real. Then I'll get that stage of completely forgetting everything, not remembering anything. It's almost like you learn all of these basic steps in your life on how to talk, how to walk, how to react, and all of that just goes out the window when you're having a meltdown. You basically go from high functioning autism to low functioning autism when you're going to have a meltdown. So that is my Asperger's sensory overload information leaflet. You're very, very welcome. But if you want me to do more of these, well, I know you do, because there's like 8 subscribers now. Thank you to all of you. I will do more of these videos for you guys. I've just been really off the last month, but I will be uploading a video on my other channel, so check that out, because it's about OCD. It could really, really help somebody. And I'll see you next time. Bye.